Show on the way for you today. The live period is over. College basketball recruiting was in full swing over the course of the last 2 weeks. Jeff and I are finally home from Peach Jam. Jeff somehow found a way to make it home despite losing his wallet in beautiful North Augusta, South Carolina. We will talk all about that at some point. We have Ani Umana here, who has spent the live period. You saw the guys at Nike, Ani. You saw the guys at Adidas. You were all over the place. But before we get into the meat of this pod, just give us and give the listeners a quick little bio of yourself, a recap of yourself, and plug what you need to plug.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Ani Umana. You spelled it, you said it right on my last name. People usually botch that one. But from Dallas, Texas, really been starting on the recruiting, the scouting, evaluation stuff for about 10 years now. And yeah, just a grinder and a worker. I just like to be in the gyms and staying there for 14-hour days. I think there's something wrong with me, but it's all good. Like
And
is what I
I
enjoy.
used to like that. Ani, I used to love to stay in the gym for 14. Now I'm down to like 8. All right. So as you get older, it's going to start to cut down a little bit. But Ani comes highly recommended. I did my due diligence. I asked around a ton, and this is the guy. This is the guy. So he's going to be our Field of 68 recruiting guru here as we move forward. We've been looking for somebody for quite some time, Rob, and we found him.
Glad to have you on board, Ani. And there's a lot to talk about when it comes to recruiting now. Specifically, we have 3 superstars in the class of 2025. We got a potential superstar in the class of 2026, and everyone in those 2 classes are going to get compared to Cooper Flagg. We're going to talk about the next crop of big names that you need to know and some of the biggest risers from July. But before we get into all of those conversations, I want to ask both of you guys this because we're coming off of multiple seasons where the idea of one and dones and the idea of building teams that can compete for national championships at the college basketball level with rosters built with one and done players and freshmen hasn't really worked all that well. And I feel like at some point in these next couple of classes that might change. So Ani, I'll go to you first, man. Are you expecting a change with the way that these college basketball staffs look at and evaluate and target some of the freshmen, given the big names and the talents that are coming through the pipeline?
Yeah, absolutely. Even talking to coaches now, I mean, there's there's not as many that talk about bringing in 4 or 5, high school guys. It's like 1, maybe 2 will look at it, and they're very particular with which ones they're going to recruit because they're like, hey, the older the better. That's how most of them really think. So I think you're not going to see as many schools, recruit 4 to 5 high school guys and bring into the program because they're not as ready to help them make a tournament run or even get them to the tournament. So now you're seeing 1 or 2, and they're like, hey, like if he plays, he plays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I think there's even a lower expectation from coaches on even these players playing or even being like big time rotational guys. Obviously, like the 5-star kids, they're going to play. Even the 4-star guys, the guys that choose the right program, yes. But talking to guys, it's more like, yeah, we just need a high school kid, and hopefully he can stay for a couple years, right? Not as much as, hey, we need to build with him. We need to win right now with him. He's someone that's just going to slowly come up and, figure it out when he gets older.
I think it'll change a little bit. And starting with this class, I think it'll revert back because you've got a high power class, right? Like we'll talk about it in a minute here, but the top 3 guys are dudes. I mean, they are. It's probably the best trio on paper since like 2013, which I think was Wiggins, Julius Randle, Jabari Parker. Now I know those guys didn't all pan out to NBA superstars, but back then we were talking about them as like almost can't miss guys. And Jabari was the one who probably missed. Randall and Wiggins have been good, but not as good. I think, again, the gap is going to close again between the transfers and the top 50-ish freshmen because you're not going to have the COVID guys. You're not going to have the 50-year COVID kids. And that's where, to me, again, you looked at like the top 10 high school kids. Those are the ones that have still impacted for the most part the last couple of years. Now I think it's going to revert back, and you're going to see most of the top 50 freshmen have an actual impact.
Yeah, it was interesting talking to a couple of coaches down in Augusta because that's kind of what I heard from them, right? Is like, I think we need to eventually make an adjustment back to having more freshmen, but we've gotten used to coaching guys that are 23 and 24 years old, and one, I think that it's a little bit easier for them when you're coming in with a guy that has doesn't have the expectations of a 5-star or a 4-star freshman, right? A lot of those guys think they're one and dones. A lot of transfers when they're coming in understand what college basketball is about, and I think that there's a little bit of a value there and maturity. But I also think that they don't quite know what the market is, Jeff. Right? Like, what is it going to look like when you don't have a year where a third of the transfers or whatever it was are guys that are getting their 5th year of eligibility, that are going to be 23, 24 years old, that are saying no to having a chance to go play professionally? I think that there's a level of unknown when it comes to what we're going to be looking at moving forward.
Yeah, and it depends also on NIL with these
Mhm.
kids. Are the top, 10 high school kids, the 50th best high school kid, is he going to be asking for 500, 750,000? And a lot of these schools are going to be like, there's no way in hell we're paying these kids that, because they're not going to impact us enough as freshmen. And then let's face it, if they're playing 10, 15 minutes a game, they're gone after a year. They're transferring. They
Right.
know they're getting them for a year. So if you're getting them for 1 year for the most part, why aren't you getting a transfer that can come into the program from day one and impact, rather than a guy that you're hoping, come conference play can be a contributor?
Mhm. The one dynamic that I think will be interesting, Ani, is when it goes to when you get the more scholarships that are available, right? Is that going to lead to an impact of more scholarships just aren't filled? Is it going to be guys that are going to go out and try to find someone at the end of the bench, or will it be something where you just kind of roll the dice on a handful of freshmen, give them scholarship opportunities, have them come in at a cheap NIL valuation, and be able to roll the dice, and maybe one or two of them find one or two of what, like a class of 7, find a way to be able to stick in the rotation, and you want to keep them around. And the other 5, you just kind of say, oh yeah, you can, if you got better portal opportunities, go ahead and take them.
Right. I think it's gonna be a mixture of a little bit of everything on that. I think there's some programs that are gonna wait late on that scholarship and see what's available. Either that's someone gets cleared through in the portal, or if it's a high school kid, like a high school big. Like I don't know how many times I was asked, "Hey, do you know someone that's 6'10", still that's a 2024 high school kid?" Like I think bigs are always going to be, those scholarships are going to be available for them. But I think it's going to be a mix of like, taking some guys that are like end the bench guys, right? Or, waiting to see if someone, they committed somewhere, but they haven't reported on campus yet. And, they try to intercept it. We know this is going on in college sports, basketball. So I think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be a wait and see on what's going to be available towards the end, like in the summer, and then taking a chance on some high school guys that could be projects to, some high, low risk, high reward type situations.
It's going to be a lot of fun is watching these teams take these foreign tours and have players that committed there play like 8 minutes a game and then end up going back in the portal. Jeff, is that might happen? We might see guys transferring on in mid to late August. We might have to fire up the field of 68 when you're down in Aruba or wherever you're going to end up being on one of your 4
Yeah.
month vacations.
Yeah, I think most coaches are smart enough to split the minutes evenly on these foreign tours, and there aren't many going on foreign tours anymore because they're not blowing that money on foreign tours when they need it for NIL.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's get into the big three, and I feel very comfortable calling them the big three. That is AJ Dybantsa, Cameron Boozer, and Darryn Peterson. And Ani, I'm going to start you with this. With those 3 players, are you surprised that Jeff Goodman was able to make his flight home from Augusta despite the fact that he lost his wallet at Peach Jam? Did you know you didn't actually need your driver's license to get on a flight? I had no idea.
Yo, I did not know that. Like when you saying that, I was like, no, there's no way. Like, how much did you pay? Did you pay like how did you pay your way through there or something? Like
I
that
know.
happened to me in Virginia and I could not get a flight.
So, all right, number one thing, if anybody found my wallet, please reach out to me, DM me. It's somewhere in North Augusta. I don't know where. Final game of the night. And the worst part, Rob and Ani, is I actually did a good Samaritan thing. I was at the vending machine. I don't often do it. We know that. I'm an asshole. But what happened was there was a young girl and her brother standing by the vending machine, and they couldn't get anything out of it. You know, they were trying to, I don't know, try to figure it out. Nothing came out. So I ended up swiping my credit card and got them, I don't know what it was, chips or whatever for $2.50. So I get them the chips. Then I go over and get a water at the concession stand and leave there, go to a gym. I think it was gym 2. And at the end of the game, I get up and I look at Jeff Borzello and I go, oh shit, no wallet, back pocket, front pocket, pocket. And I just got out of the bathroom, ran back in the bathroom, nothing there, nothing in the concession stand. It was closed at that point. Went to Lost and Found. Anyway, nothing. So cancel all the credit cards. Borzello did what you wouldn't have done, Rob, which was be helpful, right? I mean, you would have, I mean, we know what you do in North Augusta, because last time when I got bit by what I thought was a bee, you almost left me to die. I mean, let's face it, you were of no help. In fact, you tried to kill me. Borzello was the opposite, extremely helpful. Thanks, Borzello. I appreciate it. Canceled all my credit cards. Got up the next morning. We drove to Atlanta. And what was the savior? And this is my piece of advice to everybody out there. Go get clear. Go get clear, because now all you got to do, you know, they do the eye deal where you just put your, you know, facial recognition, your eyes. And I never had to show any sort of documentation, which I know sounds scary, but I got through. Then got my car at Logan Airport. Now I had to wait like 6-hour delay in between. Atlanta was a complete shit show. Delta specifically, they have 3,500 flights that were canceled the past week. So I'm home. But anyway, if you found my wallet, it's one of those little like Ridge wallets. Please take the money. I don't care about the money.
Take the money, use that to pay, keep the change yourself. You're good to go. A little bit of money for your for your good deed. For your good deed. All right. Let's start with this, Ani. I want to start with Cam and the Boozers, simply because they are the ones that went out and won Peach Jam. The Night Riders won Peach Jam. So my question to you, and I think this was the conversation that everybody was kind of having in the building over the weekend, right? Is what is his ceiling as a player? He is a guy that's probably 6'8", right? 6'8" in basketball shoes, maybe 6'9". Physical, great rebounder, not the best athlete you've ever seen, not the greatest shooter you've ever seen. He could do all of that stuff well. He just produces. How do you see that translating as you move up levels?
Yeah, I think he'll still, obviously, he uses his size advantage as a strength, right? Like where he see, especially inside. Like you said, he can shoot it some. He handles it pretty solid, but it's nothing like really just out there fantastic. What's funny is like I kind of did like an NBA comp, and I loved watching Utah Jazz with Darren Williams and Andre Kirilenko and his dad Carlos Boozer, and I'm like, he's like an updated version of Carlos Boozer, like strong body, face up game, shoots it like baby fades. Like now, I think Cam will be able to shoot the three. I think as he continues to go up levels, he'll be able to be a solid spot up shooter and a ball handler, and I think he'll be able to attack and get to the rim some. But he reminds me of his dad, but like the 2024 version of it.
Does that work? Does that work in 2024, Jeff? Does that work in the modern NBA?
Well, he reminds me of his dad a lot, and I watch his dad a lot. Duke and obviously in the NBA. But what he's added over the last year is a perimeter shot. He could shoot the three now, and he doesn't hesitate. Where a year ago, I remember watching him, and he didn't really shoot it much, and when he did, it didn't go in. Now he's efficient with it. He hasn't fallen in love with it, which I love. But look at here are Carlos Boozer's stats his junior year at Duke. Okay, I'm going to read them to you, and you tell me if you think he can average this his freshman year in college: 18.2 points, 8.7 rebounds. He didn't shoot the three at all, obviously, because he didn't. Not a big shot blocker, just like Cameron. I think those are the numbers you're going to see next year. If he goes to Miami, if he goes to Duke, if he goes to Florida, wherever he is, I could see him averaging 18 and almost 9 a game. And let's face it, in AU, there's nobody more consistent than Cam Boozer. Nobody. Period. The kid just wins. In every frigging game, you look up and you're like, that dude basically had 20 and 10.
Yeah, I got a comparison for you, Ani. Tell me what you think about
Okay.
this. I think he is mid to late career Kevin Love, right? Like, I don't know if we're going to see the 26 and 13. Like, Kevin Love had some years where he put up monster numbers, right? I don't know if we're going to see that. But when Kevin kind of changed himself from being the guy that you ran everything through on a team that was fine in the NBA to being a piece alongside a superstar that was competing for championships, averaging 50, was it like 15-9 and shooting 40% from three. Like, I think that long term will be the best case scenario for Cam Boozer. Am I crazy? Can he get there?
You're not crazy, and I definitely think throughout his NBA career, I think he'll become like a high 30s, potentially 40% 3-point shooter. I think there's real upside with the shooting. Like Jeff said, like he makes shots. Like I've seen him make a lot of open threes. And I think he'll just get better as in due time because like I've heard about his work ethic and it's really, really good. Like he stays in that gym. So I agree with you. I can see that as like long term becoming that high level shooter, like that third piece, like on a contending team. Definitely can see
Like
him
a
on
Chris Bosh. To me, like a Chris Bosh type. Like he's
Mhm.
different. Obviously, Bosh is longer, more athletic, but like that type of role on a team. He's going to be better than anyone thinks because you know what? He brings it every game. He rebounds. He runs the floor really well, like really, really well. And again, he's
Well,
not a great athlete.
the rebounding always translates. Like, no matter how, if you go up levels, if you can rebound, you're going to be able to rebound, and that's like his best skill. He's a good post scorer, right? Like, he's got the moves. He can finish around the basket. He's athletic enough. He's a good enough shooter, but he can rebound, and that is always going to make sure that he gets on the floor and he produces. He also wins. Goodman, this one's for you. I'm going to make a case here. The Knight Riders, right? This program won the 15U EYBL. They won the 16U EYBL, beating Cooper Flagg in the process. They won the 17U EYBL while adding Caleb Wilson, another top 5, top 10 kind of a player. But they won the 17U EYBL, beating a very, very good takeover team in the process, and also beating AJ Dybantsa and Tyran Stokes in the championship game. Where do they rank, and do they rank in the conversation for best grassroots teams of all time? Because I think at the bare minimum, they have to be in the conversation.
I mean, there's no question they're up there. Okay. Like, but I will say this. Like, I remember, and this predates you guys, but like 2003, the Gauchos were friggin' awesome. And I'm going to tell you the names, and you're going to be like, like, I don't even remember these dudes. Russell Robinson, who went on to have a pretty good career in college at
Won a
Kansas, Sunday
championship
out
at
of
Kansas.
Gaines. Yeah, Sunday out of Gaines. They had guards that were just absolutely the next year, Julian Wright, 2004, Illinois Warriors. He was unbelievable. I mean, there have been some good teams. I mean, the best backcourt I ever saw, guys, was Derrick Rose and Eric Gordon when they teamed up for Mean Streets. I think that was like 2006, maybe
2007.
7. All right, 2007. I mean, this team, what it's done is unprecedented. I mean, winning 3 straight is insane. Again, on a circuit that is clearly the most dominant, the Nike circuit, and an event that everybody looks forward to playing. You and I, and we'll talk about AJ Dybantsa in a minute, but like we talked to him, we could sense when you watched that title game, it was, I mean, these guys are playing for something. Like it means a ton to them to win the Peach Jam, way more than it used to because of the EYBL circuit that's set up.
Yep. And all right, so let's get to the recruitment a little bit here, because the feeling I got is that Miami is probably the leader right now. A lot of people think that's where they are generally going to end. And for people wondering why, the twin sons of a Duke legend, I don't know if you can call him a legend, but a very, very good Duke player would end up going to another ACC school. They're both from Miami. They grew up in Miami. They go to high school in Miami. They do everything down in Miami and in Florida, which is why Florida's in the mix as well. But it's also, I guess, the Final Four: Miami, Duke, Florida, Kentucky is what I heard. Don't count UConn out there. I think that they're quietly trying to weasel their way into that recruitment. I don't know if it'll end up working, but we haven't mentioned Cayden yet, Ani. I think Cayden is a terrific point guard. I think he should be in the conversation for the best point guards in this class. I think he has a chance to play in the NBA for a long time as well. Are they a package deal? And is it worth a program like, let's say in Illinois, getting in there and trying to recruit Cayden individually as a just a point guard by himself?
Yeah, I definitely don't see them going to separate schools. I feel pretty good about that. So if you're Illinois is recruiting separately, I mean, if you just want to do it, sure. But if you actually really trying to get them,
Wasting your time.
you're just wasting your time. They're not going to separate schools.
I agree. I'd be shocked. I mean, you can just sense it. Like, and again, they're so different. You know, they're twins, but obviously they're not identical twins. And one's a point guard, one's a big, and they play with each other so well. They know exactly what their strengths and weaknesses are and make life like Cayden is so underrated. You know, you were saying it as you're watching him, Rob, and just makes every right play. He's not a great shooter. He's the guy that you're going to need. You know, you're going to need 3 or 4 shooters around him. But again, you put those two in any college program next year, I'll put my money on that college program.
Smart, man. He sees everything happening and knows it's happening 3 seconds before it happens, right? Like he's one of those guys. You talk about it with quarterbacks, right? Like they throw you open. You know what I mean? Like they throw the ball before the break. They know when someone's going to be open before you know you're open. That's what it's like with watching Cayden run the point, like playing transition, make reads and ball screen. He's so good. And he's big. Like I don't think people realize he's like 6'5", right? And he's strong and he knows how to, like, if he gets you on your hip, you're just done. I think he is a fantastic point guard. I think he's in there.
And like you talk,
Go ahead, Ani.
And you talk about how smart he is. I think defensively, he's very smart. Like he can read what the opposing teams are going to run, like their plays, and then he guards really well, uses his strength, and moves well. Like I like how he can just initiate offense and make the right play. But I like it defensively that he really can disrupt other teams like point of attack and just kind of what they're trying to get done.
Yeah, that duo is just they're a lot of fun.
You know what's great about him too?
To play against. Go ahead, Goodman.
Rob, you know what's great about, like, I talked to him after the game and they're just all about winning, like, which is fairly clear when you watch him play, but like
cyborgs.
They kind of remind me of like the Villanova guys, to be honest, right? Like Jalen Brunson, some of those Villanova guys don't have a lot of personality. You're not going to get them to slip up. You try to get them to talk about their recruitment. They're too smart for us. And they don't show any emotion on the court, really. They just go out and do exactly what you tell them to do, right? Like they're going to be coachable as hell. They're going to play hard as hell. They're going to execute whatever you ask them to do. And again, like to me, they're just, Cam's not the most talented guy in the class.
Right.
But man, like for college, I don't know if anybody's going to have a bigger impact than
he'll play in the NBA. I feel very confident saying his size, his passing ability, his pedigree, his IQ, he will play in the NBA and he'll do it for a long time. To me, the question is like, does he do it as a backup point guard level or does he do it as like a starting point guard, potential all-star?
No, you said, hey, go give me the line that you said about him in the NBA potentially.
Oh, so I was this wasn't for me. I was having a conversation with a coach that was there, right? And we were just sitting and watching the game. And he said, my hot take is that I think that Cayden will be a better NBA player than Cameron Boozer will be. And I would probably bet that it's Boozer just because I think the raw production that he will provide, like he's gonna put up numbers. You just know he is.
Well, yeah, of course it's gonna be Boozer. Yeah. They're both Boozer.
I'm sorry, Cameron. I'm sorry, Cameron, because of the raw production. But I think Cayden,
see what I'm dealing with, Ani. See what I'm dealing with here.
Yes, that was a rough one.
It's all good. It's a long day already.
Yeah, Cayden. I think there's a real chance that Cayden could end up being a better NBA player than Cameron will be. That's just my take. All right, let's get into AJ Dybantsa because he's the superstar. He is the guy that everyone loves to talk about. He is the guy that is Goodman's probably the favorite player in this class in terms of like the kid. We had him on a podcast earlier today and he showed his personality a little bit. He's a funny kid. I want to start with this though, Ani. Everyone is talking about him as like the next great one, right? Like, but where do you see like his comp? Where do you see his development? And where do you see his ceiling being?
When I first watched him play last year in the NBPA camp, I felt like I was watching like Andrew Wiggins, just with the fluidity of just his movement, his size, a big wing that's athletic. Like he has big time like wingspan. I think it's over 7 foot and just hang time. He scores it. He has a lot of like you said, he has a lot of personality. He's charismatic. He's a funny kid. And but he just when he gets on that court, he just really just gets after you. He gives me some shades play style of Andrew Wiggins, but I think his ceiling is higher than that. I think it's way higher than that. I think he has a chance to really be an NBA All-Star and a multiple-time NBA All-Star. I mean, AJ has. I mean, obviously there's stuff he needs to work on, but he has a total package. When you talk about just physical and just skill boxes that he checks off, I mean, I think he's a multiple-time All-Star.
Paul George, what do you think of that?
I like that. I like that, especially with the shot creator.
That's the one that AJ likes the most. That's the one he told me about last year. He said, Indiana, Paul George is kind of what he said to me a year ago. The Wiggins thing, I like physically in some ways. The difference for me is AJ shows up every game, and Wiggins did not. No, but listen, I know, Rob, you're shaking your head, but that's the truth.
No,
That's
you're
truth.
not wrong. I just love how you found a way to get a shot at Aaron Wiggins there.
Andrew Wiggins. Aaron, I'm not going to take a shot.
Right. Yeah.
Will not take a shot at Aaron Wiggins.
Yes,
I like Aaron
right.
Wiggins.
I'm sorry.
No.
How many more names do you think I can get wrong here, Jeff Borzello?
I know you're at 2 so far. You're at 2, and we're 15 minutes into this thing. So my guess, the over/under is probably 5. Yeah, I like Paul George combination. I think again, to me, he's a little bit different because he's so explosive offensively. Like his frame doesn't give you the indication, but he is physical and he embraces the contact and he goes to the basket. That's kind of where he's most comfortable right now in some ways. He can shoot it fairly well, but even he said to us, Rob, like, that's the area I want to get better at. I know, my perimeter shots got to be a little bit more consistent at the next level, but man, that kid every game, again, kind of like Cam Boozer in some way, every way you look up and you're like, the dude puts up 20 points and he's gotten better with his passing ability and his ability to kind of give it up and make people better. I think playing with Stokes has helped, kind of develop that part of his game because Stokes is so good at that. And he knows if he gives it up, he's going to get it back. And I just think AJ, I mean, he's bigger than Tatum now. Think about that.
Yeah.
He's already taller than like Jason Tatum.
He's got the broad shoulders like Tatum does.
Yep.
But your point about the physicality is a good one because I think that, at least in my mind, the difference between him and Andrew Wiggins is I think you would call Andrew Wiggins, especially when he was I remember seeing him at the Nike Global Academy back in 2012 at Bishop O'Connell. And like the thing about him was he was so twitchy, right? Like everything he did was explosive. Everything he did, it felt like he was going to jump through the roof every single time he went up to try to dunk a ball or anytime he went up to try to shoot a jump shot, right? And I feel like AJ, I don't think he has quite that level of athleticism, but I think everything he does is more controlled and more calculated. And he's just so good at kind of throwing a pump fake, putting his shoulder into somebody to create a little bit of space and getting a shot off that way. Like I feel like, I don't know if like basketball IQ, Ani, is the right way to put it, but I feel like there's a level of understanding in how to be a professional scorer that he has that a lot of guys that are those 6'9" athletic big wings don't necessarily. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here?
Right. Yeah. Like the way I just think he's like a quick, like, thinker or processor. Me, like he can just kind of make a quick decision and it's the right decision as far as like scoring and going to a spot. Where most guys like at his size, like it's more like mechanical, or you can tell they're really thinking about having to make this play or that play. I think it just comes really natural to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's like IQ feel. Like I just think he just can just make a decision that quick and make a read and just get it done.
Yeah. Goodman, we've seen play. We mentioned Andrew Wiggins and you mentioned the 2013 class. Like, how does AJ ensure that he's going to end up being the guy that his ceiling could be instead of, I don't want to say like Andrew Wiggins is a bust because I hate when people have those conversations. He's going to make $300 million in his career. He's won a ring. I think he is probably not quite the ceiling that we thought, but he ended up being a very good player at the NBA, and that's what you would expect with drafting where he was. How does AJ ensure that he gets that potential? Like one NBA scout told me, he has the chance to be the best player in the NBA at some point in his career if it all pans out for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just working and you worry a little bit, right? Last year was his first year prolific prep in Napa
Mhm.
Valley. This year he goes to Utah prep. He's bouncing around a little bit. Now that's kind of par for the course these days for a lot of these kids, but you got to make sure mentally, right? It's just the mental part of the game for him, and he loves it. But again, now it's a little bit different than a year ago because now everybody's pulling at him all the time and he's traveling all the time. And you asked him this question. You said, listen, with all this travel, how do you find time to get in the gym like you talked about a year ago, which was getting in early and staying in the gym and working on your game. And that's got to be something where you got to be mature, right? You got to be mature and you got to love it. And I'm not sure Andrew Wiggins ever loved it.
Right.
Not like this kid.
Yeah, I think AJ does. And I'm not going to
Yeah,
sit here and
he
pretend.
loves it.
I'm not going to pretend like we're best friends like you like to do, Goodman. But the sense that I get from him is that it's not a show, it's not a front, right? Like he actually wants to live in the gym. And to his credit, we saw him play a morning game. I believe it was a 9 a.m. tip off,
He
right?
showed up.
On Thursday
Yeah.
at Peach Jam.
Yeah.
We had we recorded the podcast at noon. And then after that, he was going to go get a workout in that night. And the night before, he had gotten a workout in with, I believe it was Paul George and CP3 there. So the kid is putting in the work. Alabama, Auburn, BYU, Arkansas are the four schools that I heard the most. He has no list yet. Goodman, let's go to you first. Do you have an update on what we can know and when we can know it in terms of his recruitment? And then Ani, I want your kind of ideas on where you think the best fit for him would be. If you were advising him, if you were Ace, right? If you were his dad, where would you be trying to get him to go and get him to end up? Goodman first.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're guessing at this point, but those four certainly seem like they'll be in the mix. What'd you say? Alabama, Auburn, BYU, Arkansas,
Arkansas.
Kentucky, maybe. I could see those five being a part of his final eight. Obviously, Ace has done an incredible job uh, as his father, kind of balancing, being protective of him. Yet again, I mean, you talk to the kid, and it was like, you remember I asked him, I said to Ace, anything we need to worry about asking him about, because it's a high school kid and you don't want to put him in a position, a bad position. Ace was like, no, whatever. And he trusts AJ, even though he does control the recruitment right now. Ace does. I think that's going to change once it gets down to 8 schools. And AJ talked about that. He said it's overwhelming right now. You got 30, 40 offers, whatever it is. You can't talk to every coach.
Mhm.
But when it gets down to 8, I think you'll see him play a more pivotal role in his own recruitment. And I think those are 5 schools that I could see being in the mix. And certainly, hey, listen, NIL, we know is going to be important here. Is it going to be the end all be all? I don't know. I don't know if he goes to the highest bidder. I hope it's a combination, right? Obviously, he's going to go somewhere where NIL is significant. But also, I hope he goes somewhere kind of like Brandon Miller did. And I know the numbers were different. Okay. I know the numbers were different a few years ago, but Brandon Miller took less money to go to a place in which the playing style really favored showcasing his skills.
Go ahead, Ani. Where do you think the best fit is?
Ooh, I mean, I'll give an answer, but like a kid like him, I just think that he's going to be really good wherever he goes. Me personally, I like Auburn. I like how just with how Bruce Pearl just really utilizes like big wings. I really do. I like Auburn as a fit for him. Just play style, and I think he'll be able to play through mistakes again, even in Alabama. Like you talked about, Brandon Miller got to really play through mistakes, opportunities, and I mean just to play. I like those two schools a lot, uh, just because they kind of have a history. They have guys that it's yeah, you could be this because we've done this recently. And the other schools like Arkansas with Cal, I mean, obviously we know what he's done with freshmen. Um, but I like those two a lot, be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah. I really, you mentioned Auburn. You see what happened with Jabari Smith and what happened with Isaac. Why am I
Or
blanking on his name? Isaac Okoro, right? And just, even Jalen Williams, the development that he made over the course of the last year. Bruce knows how to use those guys that are big fours and how to utilize them properly. The one thing I do want to touch on real quick is we mentioned BYU there, and BYU in the same conversation as Alabama, Auburn, Arkansas, Kentucky, Kansas, like all of the big schools. Seeing BYU in that list is a little bit interesting, Jeff. Why is it there?
well, because he's going to Utah Tech or whatever it is this
Utah
year.
Prep.
Prep.
Utah Tech is a
Utah
college.
Prep, whatever. Utah Tech, sorry, the college. There's my first snafu of the pod. Yeah, I just, and they're going to have money. They're going to have money. New coach Kevin Young. They got a ton of money there. I just wonder if going to Utah Prep could hurt him in a way from wanting to go to BYU. I feel like being in the state for 8 months now coming up, he could be like, you know what? I want a little bit more action than being in Utah. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it could backfire. I don't think he ends up at BYU. I'd be surprised if he ends up at BYU at the end of the day. I could see again. Remember too, Alabama assistant coach Preston Murphy coached AJ when he was younger on the circuit. So one of the few coaches really that AJ knows well at this point in his recruitment is Preston Murphy from Alabama, Bruce Pearl also from Massachusetts. Calipari speaks for himself in terms of the amount of guys that he's put forth. And Kentucky's got a big name. And I'm not sure Kentucky's definitely going to be in the Final Eight, but they've obviously got the power of big Blue Nation.
Yeah. BYU is the amount of money in and around Salt Lake City right now is large, and there are a lot of people in around the university that really love BYU athletics and don't have a problem cutting a check when they need to cut a check to be able to make sure that BYU athletics are going to be good. And I don't
Yeah,
think
they
it's
won't get outbid for sure.
Yes, that is 100% true. All right. Before we move on to Darryn Peterson, just real quick, Tyran Stokes, number one player in 2026, Ani. Um, the I'm going to start you with this. Jeff and I really struggled coming up with a comparison for him in terms of like what he could be as a player because he's like 6'7", 230, class of 2026. Everything you want kind of like out of a small ball four prototype power forward in terms of his ability to rebound, his athleticism, his burst. Like he's an NFL tight end right now at 16 years old. But he's also like a point forward, right? Like he had a
Right.
triple double in a game we were watching. He had 8 assists in another game that we were watching. He's sensational at getting the ball at the defensive glass and going coast to coast and finishing at the rim. Little right hand heavy, but like he's unique in the sense that I can't think of somebody that has like that combination of skill sets readily off the top of my head.
Yeah, if you like a comp, I think he's like a multitude of some guys. I'm gonna kind of give a throwback. He was one of my favorite players to watch. Obviously, his career didn't pan out, but like in that point forward mold with high IQ, feel like Royce White. I loved watching Royce White.
You just made the exact same comparison that Goodman made, right? Oh,
Really?
he's going to take so many victory laps here. You could have said anybody else, Ani.
Ani, great minds think alike. And
100%.
the third person in this pod just gets names wrong.
Oh, man. Go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry.
But like Royce White, just like his feel, like obviously Royce wasn't much of a shooter. So I think like I always look at he's like the updated, like modern day version, one that can really make shots and shoot. And but I just like how he rebounds, his push up the floor, makes passes. He plays with like that level of like edge and nastiness to him, which I think that really allows him to be a really good player. So I like Royce White. I mean, now people would probably I've heard Draymond, but not really. I just like the Royce White comparison because I think he's a legit point forward that can make shots, and just that mean streak he has makes him just a hell of a player.
Yeah, to me, no, you can never compare someone to Draymond because nobody will have the understanding of basketball, like the basketball
Right.
brain. That's where he was a unicorn. His ability to understand and read the game. Go ahead, Goodman. Take
You
your
know
victory
who's not a
lap.
bad one? You know who's not a bad one? And again, he's not quite as long as how tall do you think he is?
6'7", 6'8".
Yeah.
AJ's
That's
got like
acceptable.
an inch on him. So whatever you think AJ is,
AJ is
subtract
like
from him.
6'10" with shoes, by the way.
Yeah. So Tyran is
I would
probably like
say,
6'8" in shoes, 6'8.5" in
all
shoes.
right. So how about a little bit of Julius Randle? A little bit. Not the
Okay.
again, he's a better passer than Randall is. We know that. But like Randall can handle it now, and he always could. And he's gotten to be a better passer, I think, in the
I actually
NBA.
really like that. I actually
You
really
know,
like that.
like he's got some of that Julius Randle in him too. But, again, he's different. He's, again, really, really good passer, has thinned out. He's become much more explosive than he was a year ago. I didn't think he had a great body a year ago. And he's super explosive now. Uh, Rebounds, can take it off the glass and go with it. He gives it up. He makes people better. Not a great shooter, like you said, can make, he's streaky. Like in Indy at EYBL, he had a game where, like, I'm telling you, it was one of the top 10 games I've ever seen anybody play in AU basketball. He did absolutely everything. He made threes, he distributed, he was explosive, dunking on dudes. At Peach Jam, he didn't really shoot it great. And I still think that's the part of his game that, again, he and AJ both have to improve, but AJ is a better shooter than Stokes is.
All right. Darryn Peterson. I know what Goodman's answer is going to be here. And I look, I told you this already, Ani. We're going to have to spend the next 2 years of our lives hearing Goodman say, I fell in love with Darryn Peterson at Rock Hill. Does he belong in the conversation for number one player in the class of 2025 with AJ and with Cam Boozer?
Yeah, 100%. I think he does. He's right up there with them. At his size of 6'5", the ability to score. We talk about guys that just have like AJ, like has a natural ability just to get a bucket. I feel like that with Darryn at his size, and I think people talk about the scoring a lot with him. I love his passing ability, his ability to play make. And I think there's some even more upside there with him as a passer. And he defends like he had in Rock Hill, he had like 4 block games, like 5 steals in a game. Like he made plays on both ends. And at his size, like you see, really good NBA guards at his size that can compete on the defensive end and be a defensive playmaker, but also make shots. Like it translates. So to me, just with his physical profile, his ability to impact the game on both ends, and I think there's still a lot in his game that can be unlocked. Yeah, he definitely deserves to be in the number one conversation.
Who's he remind you of?
You're gonna have to circle back with me on that. That one's hard. That one's a little bit harder for me. Exactly who? Um,
You got a good one,
he's not.
Goodman?
I mean, a little bit of Shea, a little bit, just with the size and ability to score and, make people better. I just think it's funny. When I saw him in Rock Hill, I was like, dude, maybe this kid might be the best player in the class. And I said it. I was like, he's definitely in the equation as far as I'm concerned. You saw him the first game. Then I'm like, all right, need to see him again because, again, I say this all the time. Listen, we don't cover this like you do, Ani. We're not out there year round covering it. So we might get a guy on his best day. We might get a guy on his worst day. I thought maybe that's his best day. Now I asked a couple coaches that were recruiting him. I'm like, is this his best day right now? And they're like, no. In April, he was like this too. And
Yeah,
he kept coming like that. I mean, he kept like we have one game, forget who it was against, but it was the last game. Who did they play at the end? They played Compton Magic, I think. And the dude got to the line like 20 times. 20 times. I mean, they didn't win, But I love that about him. I love the fact that, again, he can shoot it now. He's a much better passer than I think he was a year ago. He's big. He's physical. He was dominant defensively. Every possession, every single possession, this dude was trying to lock dudes down. Every possession, he did not take one off. I just think he's one of the better all-around guards I've seen in years. You know, I put him up there. I'd be shocked if he's not a winning basketball player for the rest of his career. Like he's got the DNA. You can watch him and you fall in love with, again, his poise as well. Doesn't get flustered. Man, these three guys, like, so again, I watched him and I'm like, maybe he's the number one guy. Then I go to the Peach Jam a week later. I'm like, holy shit, AJ's gotten better. Cam Boozer just does what he does, but he's out at a three-point shot. Like, how do you figure it out with these three dudes? They're all different, and that's the beauty of them. They're all unbelievably talented and productive players.
Yeah, we'll get
So
into the.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I have a comp. So I look at him like a Drew Holiday. You know, someone that can really compete defensively. Drew was a beast in high school too. Someone that could really score. I think Darryn has better like scoring capabilities, and like you said, Jeff, he can get to that line. He get to the foul line a little bit, and that reminds me a little bit like how Russell Westbrook was, just someone that can really kind of live in the foul line. Darren's, I say Drew Holiday reminds me a little bit of how Russell was, but just a big guard that can defend and score and play make.
Yeah, though there's a lot of value when it comes to those guys that you can play, 6'5", a little bit switchable, physical, get to the line, make threes, can also play off the bounce. It could be a combo. Secondary creation is something that's really important at the NBA level and at the college level as well. Speaking of college, he's an Adidas kid. He plays on the Adidas circuit. He has an Adidas NIL deal. Is he a lock, Goodman, to go to an Adidas school? I know he's already visited Kansas, and I believe he has a visit scheduled to USC. There's a bunch of other
Yeah.
schools recruiting him, but I think those are the two that came up the most when it just in conversations about him.
No, I don't think he's a lock. I don't think he's a lock for it. But again, I would say Kansas is the leader. Remember, he's from Ohio. Ohio State, I'm hearing, is in very, very strong with him. He's going to cut his list to 8 here soon. But I don't think he's a lock to Adidas. Just like I don't think AJ is a lock to Nike, but I think that's a lot better. Listen, if my money's on a Nike school for AJ. My money's not necessarily on an Adidas school for Darryn, but I would say, to me, Kansas is probably the leader at this point.
Ani?
Yeah, Kansas is the leader right now, but it's not a lock. Ohio State, I know they're working on getting a visit set up. Like I said, USC will have a visit set up. I heard Kentucky, they may try to get a visit there too. There's some other schools kind of trying to get in and get an official. So I wouldn't say it's a lock, but Kansas is in the lead right now. With Ohio State, they're a dark horse. They're very interesting to me on potentially getting them.
Yeah, it's very interesting now. We've always heard about how you have Adidas kids want to go to Adidas schools and Nike kids want to go to Nike schools. And now they're actually able to sign individual NIL deals with those shoe companies before they get to college. It changes the dynamic and it changes the conversation. And it probably just puts everything that was happening before, Jeff, on paper instead of having it be like, here's a duffel bag full of cash for you.
Change a little bit, no doubt.
All right. I want you guys to give me rankings here. We're going to throw Cooper Flagg in the conversation. We're going to throw Tyran Stokes in the conversation with Cam Boozer, AJ Dybantsa, and Darryn Peterson. Goodman, I'm going to you first. In 5 years, rank those 5 for how good they'll be in 5 years? Like, who do you want long term out of this group? You got to do it. You got to rank it.
That is awful. I'll go with AJ 1, Cooper 2. I just think he's just going to be really, really good. He may not average 20. He won't average 20, but he just does everything well. I will go with rude boy. I'll go with Darryn Peterson 3. I just think he's going to be like that type of combo guard with size. Man, it translates. We see it in the league all the time now. 4 Boozer, 5 Stokes.
Ani?
So my list is fairly similar. I got Cooper 1, I got AJ 2, I got Darryn 3, I got Cam Boozer 4, and Stokes 5.
Yeah, I would have AJ and Cooper 1A and 1B.
No, you
And then
can't do that. You got to
no, I
pick
know.
one.
I just said AJ 1A, Cooper 1B,
Yeah.
right? And then I think you have the next group after that. I think there's a little bit of a space there. I'd probably go Cam Boozer 3, Darryn Peterson 4, and Tyran Stokes 5. But I have not seen Darryn Peterson the way that Goodman has. I've not fallen in love with him in Rock Hill at the Adidas event. So maybe if that happened, I'd have a different opinion. Um, Ani, I know you. I wanted to get you guys on like the next group of players outside of the top three in the class of 2025 on who you think are one worth knowing and two have a chance to be really good. I know you wanted to talk about native men. What do you make of him? Give me a breakdown of him. What makes him good, and where could you see him ending up?
Yeah, Nate, a man who plays for that team loaded of Virginia squad. I got to see him, I've been to about 3 Adidas stops, 6'8", 6'9". He's a wing. He shoots it. He can create his own shot. He is thin, but he has a body that you can add weight to and it'll be just fine. But I like his skill in his field at his size, and he gets better and better. Like I saw him in Omaha, good. He was good. Then in Birmingham, really good. Like South Carolina, really good. Like, he just gets better. He's adding more to his game. He's playing through contact better. He's one of those guys like, you can put him as the wing, like in a 3, and then he could be your 4-man. He can really exploit mismatches there. And I just like guys at his size with skill and feel. And I think he's just going to get stronger. He's going to play through contact better. And yeah, I think he's one that he blew up on the scenes last year, and crazy enough, he just continued to grow and grow. And now he's a 5-star kid.
Was he the best of the rest for you, Ani?
Yes, 1%.
All right. So I have the 24/7 top 10 here in front of me. They have AJ number 1, they have Cam number 2, they have Peterson number 3. Darius Akel 4th, Koa Pete 5th, Caleb Wilson 6th, your boy Nate Ament 7th, Michael Brown Jr. 8th, Malik Thomas 9th, and Isaiah Harwell 10th. Do you like the rest of that group? Like, how good is the rest? We've talked about the top 3, right? But how good is the rest of this class? Like, are there other potential pros there? Are there a bunch of run and dones? Like, where do they stand in your mind in terms of past years?
Yeah, I mean, I think this 25 class period is loaded, especially in the top 10. I mean, there's really good depth. These are guys, those guys you mentioned, all 10 guys, that they make the NBA, it's not surprising. And I don't think Nate's like the best rest, the only one that's going to be a one and done. I think we have a few guys like Michael Brown. Man, he's really
Awesome.
good. He's really, really good. Darius A. As we know about how well he plays just with the ball in his hands, and Koa Pete, he's been dominant for a long time, and I do think like he's gotten better, seeing he really works at his body, and he has a terrific work ethic too. So yeah, like I think it's a deep class, and I think in that top 10 there's going to be multiple guys like that, have that are going to be one and dones. I don't think it's just going to be Nate on that best rest. I think there's going to be a couple more, like 2 or 3 more guys that are going to be one and done candidates.
Goodman, give me someone.
Yeah, I mean, I love Mikael Brown. I do. I love him because, again, he's quick. You know how much I love point guards. He can get to the basket. He makes people better. He can score it. And then to watch him get hurt and literally play in a game on one leg, which was what he's doing, and not bail out, which so many guys do on the circuit, that showed me a lot about him. I love a kid who was hurt this summer who I saw a summer ago, and I think he's terrific, is Isaiah Harwell. He didn't play. I think he plays at Wasatch Academy in Utah. Tore his,
ACL.
I think he tore his ACL last year, and he's coming back. But he's a guy that's choosing soon from his Final Four, and I think he's somebody that's going to be terrific too. There's a ton of wings, guards, and wings and perimeter guys. The thing, talking to the high school coach, to the college coaches, Ani, and you could speak about this, is there just aren't a lot of good bigs. That's why they all flock to Puma. It was crazy when I'm like, where are all the top coaches? A lot of these dudes weren't there in Rock Hill the first day. And they're like, they're in Puma. And I'm like, Puma? What the hell are they doing at Puma? Well, they're watching this kid, Chris Senak, from Lake Academy, this big kid who everybody loves. And part of the problem is there just aren't a lot of good bigs.
Right. No, there's not. The depth of bigs in this class isn't great. Like it's really on like the wings and the guards right now. And then if you're a big in this class, like you could wait late and you can get you can get whatever you want and even more in the NIL. Yeah, because there's not enough depth.
I'll tell you this: after seeing the way that the NIL market played out this spring, the idea of anybody committing early, like, what in the world are you doing? You got to get that demand up. You got to get these coaches scrambling. You got to get them trying to figure out how the hell they're going to be able to justify the salary that they're getting, and you got to be able to get those two commas with a crooked number in front, Ani. That's what you got to be looking for here. I have a
100%.
name for you guys. I'm just going to throw it out there. He's a 5-star kid. He's not going to surprise anyone. But Braden Burries, I think that the way that he can kind of play that like two role, a little bit of a combo. He's what, 6'4", and he finished second in the EYBL in rebounding. He's tough. He's physical. He can get to the basket. He can make threes. Now, I probably saw the best game that he had this summer. But I really do think that he has a chance to end up being a very, very, very good college player and eventually a guy that plays in the NBA. All right, Ani, I'll go to you first one. We have two more things I want to get to. Let's start with this. The biggest risers in July. Why are they rising and what has changed for them over the course of the last month or so?
For me, I'm gonna go 226 kid. Mika Miranan.
Big,
Yeah, big guy. He's from Finland, I believe.
yes,
Yep.
that's right.
Yeah, like 6'10", good looking shot, moves well. What I love most is like, okay, yeah, we can talk about guys that are big and can shoot, but he can defend. Like he can move his hips, he can switch and guard. He hunts for blocks.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an animal to me. I was like, yo, like there is not 10 players.
Hey,
You know, he's a top 10
mean
kid in that.
too. He's
Yeah,
mean.
and he's gotten better. Like I saw him. I know he's at AZ Compass, but I saw him at Sunrise. I know the physicality and speed was kind of a struggle for him, but he got better throughout the year. And the guys like him that just progressively get better, guys that can move and switch and guard, as we know, like in the next levels. That's so big. To me, that's why he's the biggest riser, and he's anywhere within that the top 5 to 10.
I love it. Like I saw him in a game that he got hurt. And honestly, it was a game that they were hunting him because he was playing tough with a mean streak. And like you said, he was blocking shots. He was shooting threes, making threes, putting it on the floor. He was just dominating the game for the most part. And he goes up for a layup and one dude kind of took a cheap shot at him. The other dude went for the block and he went down hard. It was more precautionary, but he's down for 20 minutes. His mom's there, his brother's there, and they take him out on a stretcher. And I asked Brad Beal after the game, I'm like, man, like, is he going to be okay? You know, who knows? I'll let you know. Everything checked back. And Beal told me, he was like, later in the day, he's like, he wants to play. He wants to play tomorrow in the championship game. I'm like, come on, man, you can't let him play. Like, he's not going to play. He was just stretchered out hours earlier. Next thing you know, he's not only playing in the championship game, but dominating the championship game as Brad Beal elite, their 16s win the Peach Jam title. This kid is super talented. Duke offered him during the Peach Jam. And again, he's going to be a guy that honestly, I'd be shocked if he's not a top 5 player in the 2026 class when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I saw him hit 6 threes in a game. And he also has the length to be able to get up and like catch lobs well, like at the top of the square. Both of his parents played for the Finnish national team when they were growing up. I believe that's how they met. So there you go. There's the Mika Muranin love story if you guys wanted that. Under the radar names to know, Goodman, give me one guy that you love that maybe people don't know enough about or is not getting enough credit.
So believe it or not, it's a kid who I covered his father's recruitment years ago. So I'm dating myself big time here. Cornelius Ingram Jr.
That was mine. Yep, that's the one I was. That's the one
awesome.
I had.
Yes. Yeah, he's all like, I don't know how, and you tell me on it because again, I don't follow this all year round, but Like he entered, I think, July, not in the top 100. Now he's also a hell of a football player, quarterback, and he's been playing both sports. His father was a hell of a two-sport athlete as well, who ended up being a tight end at Florida. I think the Gators have the advantage in this one, but this kid is long, plays his ass off, plays tough, athletic forward who can step out and make some shots, but like he's just super talented and scratching the surface of what he can be if he commits, especially if he commits just to basketball. Then, man, he could be exceptional.
Yeah, and I'm hearing he's going to just commit to basketball. He's not going to play football anymore. And he doesn't. He's still 16. He doesn't turn 17 till August 12th. So he's going to graduate as a 225, being 17 years old. Like he's going to do two summer semesters of work, and he'll still be 17 years old. So I think he has tremendous upside. Like you said, big time athlete. I think he's just scratching the surface.
Yeah, you know what I've learned, Rob? You know what I've learned? That Ani and I like have the same brain. Like, and that may be scary for you, Ani. That may not be a
that's
positive
scary for
thing
me.
for you,
That's
but it's
scary
a
for me.
positive thing for me.
Yes, that's a good thing for you. The name that I was going to go with was Dante Allen from the Knight Riders. He's the off guard, doesn't get much credit. I saw him. The thing I loved about him is like one, the way that he plays, it's no nonsense. But he also at one point in the game made a kid fall at half court with a behind the back move. And then like probably 45 seconds later comes down the lane and throws down a huge dunk on top of everybody. Nothing changed. He was just locked in the whole time. It was like you were giving him the SATs while he was doing all of that. It doesn't, I don't even know if he enjoyed it or if he
You know what
realized.
Dauster would have done, Ani? If he had
You
done
don't
that,
wanna
you know
know.
what Dauster would
I
have
would
done?
have,
What
my ass
would
would have
Rob
been
do?
thrown out of the game. If I did that in a game in EYBL on that court in front of all, I would have been thrown out for the amount of celebrating that I did. I would have been done. My career would have been over right then and there. All right, Goodman, the last thing that I wanted to get to here, you wanted to talk about Kiyan Anthony a little bit and what you make of him as a player. We saw one of the, I don't know if you saw it, Ani, but one of the most entertaining games at PCM this year was between Team Mello and Team Durant. There's already like a little bit of a rivalry there. It's a little Baltimore, DC thing. A lot of those kids all know each other. They play a lot. And during that game, it was pretty funny to watch. Like Carmelo was on, for the people that haven't been at Peach Jam, on one side of the court in these smaller gyms, there's about 6 rows of bleachers, and the front row of the bleachers is where all the benches are. And on the other side is just a row of chairs along the wall, which is where all the coaches are supposed to be able to sit to evaluate. Well, that's where all the coaches were, except for one section of about 10 chairs. There was Carmelo, his guy, the guy, cameraman that was following him, his content guy, whatever it was Carmelo over there. And he is over there coaching his ass off, like running on the court, firing people up. There was a little bit of a, I don't want to say a fight because it wasn't a fight, but Kiyan was talking to a kid on Team Durant, and they go face to face right in front of Carmelo, and he walks over there and he just breaks up the fight and splits them up before the refs come coming over. Went to overtime. It was loud. It was packed. It was fired up in there. But it was the most entertaining game I think I saw at PSHAM this year. But Jeff, you had a takeaway from Kiyan at that game. What do you make of him? What do you make of him as a player, and what can he be long term?
Yeah, I mean, he's man, he's intriguing, right? Like first half watching Kiyan, I was like, man, I don't know, man. He looks like a poor man's version of his dad, and he's taking all these crazy contested shots, and he's making a couple. And I'm like, dude, like he's 6'4", and I guess a year ago he didn't have this type of game or personality. He was not an alpha dog. He kind of stood in the corner more and was a piece. Now he is an alpha dog. He's the guy on their team. Like at the NBA Top 100 camp, I think he had one game where he went for 42, but he did it actually went for 35 points, and he did it on 39 shots. And if that's not Mello-esque, I don't know what is, right? He's super talented, and he can really score. And again, he's a tough shot taker and at times a tough shot maker. I thought he got better as I watched him. He grew on me a lot more because he did make some good decisions with the basketball. The last game I saw him at, I think he only took about 15 shots. You know, again, I don't know. It probably depends. Can he change his role a little bit in college? Because to me, in college, I don't think you're going to want him to be that guy. And can he not be that guy? Can he be a guy that is a piece and doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time and can make people better and learns because he's not Melo. Like, that's the problem, right? Like, Melo was Melo. Like, there weren't many like him with that size and that ability to get his own shot whenever he wanted. But the kid's gotten a lot better. I don't know if he's top 30-ish, as some people have him ranked, but at times he looks top 30-ish, and at times he looks top 130-ish.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Like, he's definitely improved as like a shot creator, scoring. He shoots it at a high volume right now, and I think in the next levels, like, he's going to have to be able to be efficient off less shots. Definitely a high major prospect. Like I said, some days he looks like a top 30, top 75, top 115 guy. But I think what's just going to be the swinging factor in all this is, like, can he just be effective without the ball being in his hands, and can he be efficient off less shot attempts? Because he does shoot a lot of shots, and sometimes I think it makes him not look very good. But when they're going in, yes, of course. But I like when he's making passes for other guys. I like when he's just playmaking and making the right decision. The game's kind of slowing down for him. That's when you see, okay, yeah, at the next level, at the collegiate level, he can be an impact player and someone that can be, just someone that can help teams win as maybe your third or fourth guy.
He's also the other
You know
thing
what he is, Jeff? Right now, he
Go
is
ahead.
a tough shot maker, right? Like, that's how he
Yeah.
makes that's his bread and butter. He's a tough shot maker. And to be able to be a tough shot maker, and as you move up levels, you have to be so damn good at what you do that you're one of the elite of the elite of the elite of the elite, like the 0.0001% of the world, to be able to do that at the NBA level. Because if you're at the NBA level doing that, you can't do nothing else. And like, you have to be like a Kevin Durant kind of a shot maker to be what he wants to be. Because right now, he's not doing the rest of the stuff. And I think that more than anything else, he's got to figure out how to do the rest of the stuff if he wants this to be more than like, okay, he goes in and he averages 18 a game at probably what, like Syracuse, right?
Well,
I think,
that's my question to you. Okay, that's my question to all three of us. If you are Red Autry, and again, this kid's going to come in if he goes to Syracuse, and they were watching him, obviously. Uh, he'll come in with the expectations and the Anthony name. But if you're Red Autry, do you want Kiyan Anthony, or do you want him to pick somewhere else in a way? Because again, the other part that I didn't love about him late was he was jawing with the officials a lot and jawing with other players a lot. And I'm like, dude, just play your game, man, because you're making some tough ass shots. And the lack of respect towards the officials is something that I think he's got to mature with.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would take him. I definitely take him. I'll go with the town. Obviously, I know his dad played, and the legacy and everything like that. But I think you bank on the talent. I think the kid's going to grow up and mature. I think, honestly, I saw him in the school season. He was more like a spot up guy, right, for Lou High. And I think he's just now learning how to be the guy and how to just play in different like scenarios and stuff. So I think you bank on the talent, and I think he'll grow up. I do feel like he'll grow up. Now, he wasn't like that earlier, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Stuff happens, but I think he'll grow out of that.
And at some point, you kind of see the trajectory that he's on and bank on the idea that if he's made this jump, like maybe that jump keeps going, right? Maybe he keeps improving, but I do think it's a little bit of a risk bringing in someone that is going to want that many shots if you are a program that has doesn't have a need for someone to take all of those shots, if that makes sense. Listen, this has been fun, Ani. This has been the recap of the live period of July of recruiting, of Peach Jam, of Adidas, of all of that stuff. It can't just be the Peach Jam recap anymore because the other recruiting circuits are, in terms of the talent, there's enough people there where you got to get to those other events. As far as I'm concerned, nothing will ever compare to Peach Jam when it comes to the the glory of the event and what it is when you're able to get there and the way the community embraces it. But Ani, it's been fun having you on. I don't know if you want to brag to people that you and Jeff think alike. That's probably not the greatest thing to tell the world, but
I think
appreciate
about
you
that
being
for a
here.
little bit.
Dauster, give me back my wallet. Give me back